When I first got my 3D printer, I pretty much thought I was going to be able to print things like this. Nice models, be able to just finish them, just do things that I couldn't normally buy, like all of these scale models up here. Also make things for my FPV drones. I soon realized that some of that was possible and some of it was not. But now I see all of these people just getting awesome results with these Resin 3D printers. And they are just like super cheap, even cheaper than what I paid for the old monoprice Maker 3. So we got an Elegoo Mars Pro. Let's talk about it. My first 24 hours with the Elegoo Mars Pro. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I am Chad. It's been a long time since I made a video here, and life's been tough working at the hospital. Obviously, everybody knows what's going on, and hopefully all of you are doing well. So I have been flying and everything. I actually just got the multi-protocol module for my Tango, and I have it running on a couple of my quads, my little baby tooth, so that way I can do some wintertime bashing and not have to worry about blowing up those DJI air units. So this is pretty nice, but I've really need to just kind of let go and kind of flex my creative mind, doing things here with the model. You can see the X-Wing here. I finally pulled it back out, and I've been doing detail painting, washing, stuff like that on it. Messing around with the telescopes and stuff, trying to dial some of that stuff in to take some beautiful pictures of some wintertime objects. And then this, the Elegoo Mars Pro Resin 3D printing adventure. Got that kit running. Right now, I have a little curing station here, got a bunch of tubs with resin and all that kind of stuff to wash the parts, clean the parts and all that kind of stuff. Resin printing's pretty messy. You know, you need lots of gloves, paper towels, isopropyl alcohol that you can see I'm stocked up on here, was able to find some at a regular price. And so maybe you guys are interested in doing something like this. So let's talk about it here real quick. So this is the Mars Pro. There is a Pro 2 out right now. I think it runs like around $250. It actually has a mono screen in it versus a regular LCD, so it will print a little bit faster. Not 100% sure on all that personally. Everything that I'm going off of is based off of my first 24 hours of experience versus all the hours of YouTube research that I have watched. This is a pretty popular printer. The software we'll talk about real quick, all this stuff runs fairly well. It's a fairly tuned system. Obviously, there's people that are just making amazing looking models and everything like that for people to buy, to print out. And since it's resin and the way that it prints is such a fine detail, if you want to paint and do that kind of stuff, you have very, very minimal stuff that you have to do. Take a look at this test print here, which is just a nice rook that comes pre-sliced and ready to print out on the printer. There's other popular brands out there. Anycubic, the Photon Mono is pretty popular. This big wash and cure station here is something that will actually wash your parts and cure inside one big box versus the little curing station I have here, which is pretty generic. Probably be sending that back to Amazon. Not really worth the money, honestly. You know, if you're looking for a regular 3D printer that is just a great workhorse and it will little tinkering and you can get a lot of stuff done, the Prusa Mini Plus now with some added options that they've done just gets great reviews, and it's a really good machine if you're looking for just something to do, to play around during the next couple months as things are just kind of nasty and everything like that. So I talked about the software for the 3D printer, the resin stuff. And all this stuff looks pretty simple from the start. Everything I've watched, it all sounds like it's a real tuned, easy to do kind of thing. Well, let me tell you, it hasn't been that easy over my first 24 hours. So the first thing I had to lock down was bed leveling. The instructions on how to bed level these things are pretty much just like a regular printer. Stick the paper in there, adjust your Z height and everything like that until you get some resistance. but finding that level of resistance when you're printing at such a fine level is very difficult, because inside of these 3D printers, there is a vat that has a piece of film in it, and you pour your resin into there, and the plate comes down and basically makes contact with that plate, and a light comes on and exposes and cures the resin, and then the build plate lifts up, and then it comes back down and does that over and over and over, and that's how it prints your prints, and it does it upside down and everything like that. So you have to get in to do some really crazy things like building crazy support structures and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty wild just how it works. If we take a look here at my baby Yoda print that I've been working on, I just pulled this up here real quick so everybody can just kind of get a look at it, but I'm sure if you've looked into this, you know what it's all about. This is CheeToBox, which is the slicing and build support build program that you use to create your file that you're going to put on your drive and send to your printer to print. There's also another one called Lychee, which is, you know, Lychee for DJI drones. Kind of funny. This one's kind of up and coming, and they're really focusing hard on development to create more of an automatic experience. Even though this one here was a mix of automatic and a mix of added support structures and stuff, using a software that the developers of Anycubic have made called Photon File Validator. And what you do is when you make your file here and you add your supports and you do everything like that, you can actually run it through this program, and it will show you places kind of like in mid-air that are printing that will need support. So it's kind of just like when you're running it through your normal slicer. The only thing is, again, is when you're printing with like resin and at such fine detail, you really have to lock down these supports or things are just going to go bad real quick. So speaking of going bad real quick, I've only actually printed off those rooks. That's all I've got in the first 24 hours. I've had just so many different failed attempts. Trying to get adhesion to the build plate came down to like bed leveling and also changing some settings around. Now these slicers have all the settings and recommended stuff for your machines, your resin, and everything like that. So it's like 90% there, but there's still like that extra 10% that you have to go. And unfortunately, that 10% equals just getting anything or nothing. So I literally have probably had to empty my vat, clean things up, probably 10 to 15 times in the past 24 hours just with failed prints. And the unfortunate thing about these is that looking through the UV protected shroud and the size of the vat, you really can't tell that your print has even stuck to the build plate or is doing anything that it needs to do until it gets to like a certain point. So I had so many failed prints because my printer basically was printing onto the bottom of the vat onto the sheet and not onto the actual build plate. So after adjusting some settings like my first layer exposure times, slowing those things down a little bit, and then going back through and doing that bed leveling again, like I said, getting that paper really tight, like, you know, you just really have to pull on it to pull it all out like that. That's pretty much the strength that I had to get to in order to get prints to actually start adhering to the bed plate. So right now I have a Baby Yoda that I've been working on the support side in the software that I think is pretty well locked down. Fingers crossed, we'll see. And I've gotten 3 straight prints that were printing fine, that were attached to the build plate, and everything was good since I went back through and adjusted those settings, checking out all the different Facebook groups and forums and stuff, and just kind of collecting 4 or 5 key things to adjust. So next video, hopefully we will show you guys a printed Baby Yoda, crossing our fingers again that that's going to happen, or some FPV stuff or some model stuff, who knows, just anything to pass the time. and get through these winter months. That is for sure. But bottom line on this video is that the resin 3D printing is not as easy as people make it look. So that's all I got for you today, guys. Talk to you later. Have a good one.